My name is Mike Suprovici. I am the head of acceleration here at VC Lab, and I'm joined by Adeo Ressi, who is our CEO. And we host these events all the time. Basically, every single week, we host an event like this to answer people's questions about all sorts of different topics. Sometimes, we feature general partners. Sometimes we feature limited partners. But at the end of the day, the whole goal of this is to try to educate everyone on the venture capital ecosystem, the nuances that revolve around it, and just try to share kind of our best practices. Today, it's an AMA. It's kind of like an Ask Me Anything. A lot of people have questions about the VC Lab Accelerator since we're coming up here on final admission. So this is a really good opportunity for you to ask questions in regards to the program and various other things, but we're also obviously happy to answer any sort of questions that you may have. So a couple of just like things to talk about. So, if you want to introduce yourself, please introduce yourself in the chat. You can put your name, you can put your LinkedIn, but don't talk about your thesis and what you're actually working on, because that could potentially be general solicitation. If you have a question for Adeo and I, there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Go ahead and put a question in there. You can upvote it, and we try to make these as interactive as possible. In general, what we like to do is just kind of start with a few kind of words on basically the accelerator, kind of how it works. And then after that, we're going to shift into kind of a Q&A. So if you have questions, feel free to start piling them on, because that's what we're going to spend the next hour on.
Yeah. So Mike, this is technically a accelerator information session, but as Mike said, we really don't want to do a presentation and get too formal. We'd rather just tell you a little bit about how it works and then answer questions that you specifically have. So your questions, like on getting accepted, on applying, on how it all works, on venture capital, etc. So this is really your opportunity to ask two of the most experienced people in starting venture capital firms in the world any questions you have about the accelerator, venture capital, getting started, etc. Let me start with a little bit of an overview of the accelerator. So welcome, everyone. I'm very excited for cohort 11. We already have accepted about a third of the program. There's about the final admissions deadline is on May 21st. So it's coming up in just over a week. Or is it this weekend, Mike? The 21st? Am I?
No, yeah, it's this
Oh,
weekend.
wow. Just less than a week. It's coming up in a few. Oh my Lord, we need to do some promotion of that deadline because it's a big one. We have roughly 2,000 applicants right now. So by the way, if you know anyone strong, please invite them to apply. In fact, most of our volume is from referrals. So yeah, and it's not going to help or hinder your chances. Your chances are 100% based on the merits of your application. But if we do see that you refer people, our admissions team will take note of your name. So it does help a little bit, but it doesn't certainly hurt that you're referring people. It's not like you won't get in because there are too many people. You get in because of the merits of your application. So let me talk a little bit about how it all works. So the accelerator runs 16 weeks or 4 months. Now, sometimes we put some breaks in there, so it can be a little bit longer than 4 months. And with the summer, we'll have a few breaks. And the goal of which is not learning. It's not some informational thing. You will close on capital for your firm. Now, the program works with new managers that are starting a firm from scratch, and it also works with emerging managers that are working on Fund 2 or Fund 3. But the goal is the same: close on capital. So what we do is each week there's a sprint that you do to work on closing on capital. So in the beginning of the program, you'll be working on your thesis and the focus of the fund. In the second month of the program, you'll start really working on materials for the fund, like your deck and fund overview. In the third month of the program, You're going to ramp up your pitching and finalize data rooms and stuff like that that interested limited partners will need. And in the fourth and final month of the program, you're going to really begin the first steps of a closing process. Now, while you're doing all 4 months of the program, you will in fact be pitching limited partners. So you'll be pitching very few limited partners in the beginning because you need to learn the ropes and get your thesis down and all this stuff. But by the end, you'll be pitching somewhere between 20 and 30 limited partners per week. So throughout the whole program, you'll be pitching limited partners. And these sprints, they guide you through the path, but they're not the only tool that we offer, because I could give you the sprints and it might help you, but there are a few things that we do to make sure that the program works. So there are AMAs every week with Mike and I, like this, where we talk to you about the curriculum. We give you guidance on different things that you need to understand to be successful. We keep you on task to close. In addition to that, every week there's a top expert that comes into a mentoring session. Sometimes it's a limited partner, sometimes it's a modeling expert. A lot of times it's experienced venture capitalists that have recently launched their own funds and are sharing their experiences and guidance with you. And so you get this ability to ask questions and have hands-on support, coupled with top experts coming in to help you every single week. On top of that, there's a lot of peer-related activities. So you'll be in a working group with peers that are in, let's say, a similar geography, but working on a different stage. So you may be a Series A stage fund with a seed stage fund, with a pre-seed fund, etc. And that working group, you can share your successes, your troubles, etc., and they prove very effective. On top of that, we have an incredible Slack community where you can type a question or share something and you're going to get feedback almost instantly. There's now over 1,000 people in the community and they're very, very active. So as I said, it's probably one of the most active and interesting Slack communities that I've ever seen. You can ask about any sort of weird nuanced technical term, any sort of weird nuanced experience with an LP, etc., deal, blah, 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 and you will get an answer, I don't know, usually within minutes at any time zone in the world, because the community is global. So again, just to recap, you've got a curriculum focused on closing. You've got a weekly AMA and experts coming in helping you with closing, and you've got a supportive community that's there to see you succeed. And in addition to those three things, we also provide a comprehensive and free suite of tools to build and run your fund. So firm. So it does everything from the CRM, deal memos, data room, digital signing, all in one, and it's completely free. And because of this offering, our managers are outperforming the market, right? They're closing faster. The average time to a first close for someone who's been through VC Lab is 5.7 months. The average time to a first close in the real world is 18 to 24 months. Okay, so it's at least 3 times faster than market, okay? In addition to that, many of our firms come out of the gate and they do not have a J curve. It's very common in venture capital for when you launch a firm, you start charging your limited partners money, so the firm returns are negative, and then as your portfolio starts getting markups and doing well, that negative turns positive, and that's why it's called a J curve, because it looks like a J. Many of our firms don't have the J curve because they warehouse deals and use other strategies that we work with them on so that they can come out the gate with positive IRR and positive markups. And so what we're seeing right now is early indications that our portfolio is outperforming the normal sort of operation of VC, where firms launch with a J curve, they struggle, they fire partners, they blah, blah, blah. And this has given new managers and emerging managers a bad rap, right? A lot of LPs don't like new managers and don't like emerging managers because there's so much drama. They fire partners, they mess up deals. And we're just not seeing that happen at the same rate as market. And that's allowing now our VC Lab Accelerator to have a very, very positive brand with limited partners, whereby going through the program and working with VC Lab is actually a competitive, positive differentiator to you than other people in market that don't have the support, don't have the network, don't have the training, don't have the knowledge, and make lots of rookie mistakes. Now, Mike, I thought I saw your finger go up there. Do you have something you want to add?
In summary, look, this is not a learning program. This is not a place to like learn about venture capital. It's not an educational program in that sense. It's a closing program. The whole perspective, everything we're trying to do is to get you closed. Now, you're going to learn a lot, but you're going to learn a lot by doing. There's no like theory at all. It's like, we're going to tell you do this, 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 and that, right? In very direct kind of way so that you can get there much faster, and it cuts through all the different BS, all the different various interpretations. So that's number one. Number two, every single person that gets accepted into the program is going to be required to share the Mensarius Oath. Okay, this is an ethical code of conduct. We want to make sure that every single person that comes through the program is ethical and is building things that matter and funding things that matter. And this is going to be a requirement for everybody. So, you're going to have to share this on all your major social networks. And the reason that's that is because, otherwise there's no kind of like bite, right? There's no reason, like if you're just to check a box on the Mensarius Oath, it's not that useful for anybody, right? So we want to make sure that you actually do care about it and you do abide by these principles. And again, so just know that that's coming. So as we make acceptance decisions here over the next week or so, you're going to be asked to share this, and that's part of the application process. And we've mentioned that in the application, but it's critical.
Yeah, Mike, and I want to talk about that. So the program's completely free. The tools we built that are now the industry leader, we have more users of our tools than Carta or AngelList combined for venture capital back office. All this stuff is free because we're trying to turn venture capital into a positive force for good in the world. Okay. If we spend money on bad things like oil, plastics, war, blah, 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 that's taking humanity in a bad direction. But if we take money and we spend it on renewable energy, recyclable and compostable materials, eco-conscious fashion, sustainable food production, and et cetera, precision neuroscience, all these positive things for humanity, we can change the world for the better. And we don't want to work with people that don't agree with our values, right? We're doing this largely to help the world be a better place. So if you don't agree with our values, like, the program's great, find another program, right? Like we only want to work with people that really care about making the world a better place. And if you put if you're giving us lips, oh, I agree with the Mensarius Oath, we're going to find out and we're going to ask you to leave the program. Right? Because we're doing this literally to make the world a better place. So we don't want to like work with people that are making weaponry or like backing companies in defense. Like, that's not, I don't want to spend human capital on things that kill people, right? Even if you can make a great argument that they're bad people, we shouldn't be killing anyone, in my humble opinion. And so our values are clear. They're in the Mensarius Oath, and that's very important for us to work together. Mike, let's get to questions. There's already a
I noticed that quite a lot of folks are posting questions in the chat. We're not really monitoring their chat. We're posting links in the chat, like for example, the Mansari's Oath, you can find that in the chat and things like that. But we're not monitoring that for questions. All the questions are in the Q&A. So there's a button at the bottom of your screen. You can select that. You can add a question in there. Also, if you haven't added a question yet, just go look at the questions and upvote them. There's like a little thumbs up, upvote them, because we're gonna go through the questions that are the most upvoted first, right? So if you haven't done so yet, please go ahead and upvote some of these questions so that we can make sure that we can prioritize the ones that kind of everybody wants to kind of hear about here. So
Michael asked about hey, why didn't I get accepted last time? So I'm happy to answer some of those questions, and he has a couple things that are exemplary for everyone. So unfortunately, not everyone's going to get accepted this time either. And trust me, we want to try and accept everyone. So I'm going to give you some tips, and Michael's application is a great example on some things. So Michael, I should say, you didn't, because Mike is next to me, the other bald guy here. So I don't know what you look like, Michael. Maybe you are bald as well, but I'll call you Michael, and obviously Mike is with me on the webinar. So Michael applied last time, and he has some problems that we typically see in applications. So I think it's exemplary. Okay, so first and foremost, he didn't score, or you didn't score, Michael, very well on your network. We look at the number of people who follow you on LinkedIn, and it looks like you had under 2,000 people follow you, and that's just not a lot of people. So the problem is that venture capital is a networking business. I mean, if there's one thing that makes a good venture capitalist, it's networking. And, it just is, right? You need a network to find deals. You need a network to find LPs, blah, blah, blah. So the easiest way to measure your network is to look on LinkedIn. If you have over 5,000 followers on LinkedIn, that's a pretty good sign that you have a good network. And anything under 5,000, it's kind of going down. And 2,000 and below, doesn't get you a good networking score. So everyone out there, if you don't have a big network right now on LinkedIn, get busy working on your network on LinkedIn. You can post, you can meet people at events, but you have to have a good network to be in VC. So that was sort of a negative scoring one. Another area is consulting. We tagged you as a consultant. There are lots. I have nothing against consultants. I've been a consultant. I ran a large, a huge consulting company. Actually, we're a $1 billion consulting company. Okay, so I get it, right? But the problem is, consultants and venture capitalists are kind of different. And here's a traditional problem that we see. Okay, based on experience. Oh, I got a big project, so I have to put my venture fund on hold. Because when you're a consultant, you're always a consultant first. Or, oh, this customer asked me to do this, so I'm not doing the VC fund. Or I'm doing the VC fund to get more consulting business. And all that is that's not, you're either a consultant or a VC. If you want to be a VC, you got to stop being a consultant. Right. I don't know if you want to add anything about that, Mike. And then
we see an inverse correlation also between folks that are consultants and success in general, and raising capital and in the program in general, right? And so that's also part of the data. And it's at this point, we're on cohort 11, and we have a lot of data on this.
Right. So either you got to make the choice. I'm going to stop being a consultant and start being a VC. You can't do both. And some VCs, when they get started, do a little bit of consulting work here and there to make money, but you really have to make that decision. I'm out of consulting. It's you get $1 million project just for you, you got to turn it down. And this brings up a couple other things from that were negative in your scoring. So, and this is lessons for everybody. If you're not going to put at least 40 hours a week into building your venture capital firm, you will most likely fail, right? It doesn't mean that you have to put 40 hours a week every week, right, Mike? Like some
Yeah.
weeks, yeah, not every week.
Especially at the beginning of the program, but certainly once you start closing, it's like 40 plus. And look, maybe we take a step back on this, Adeo. Like, we're not here to help people launch like funds. Okay, we're here to help people launch enduring venture capital firms. Okay, this is for like legit, like serious people that want to do this as a career and nothing else.
And
This is
change
like,
the world.
exactly.
If
Exactly.
you want to change the world and build a fund to do it, we'll do at Mike and I will kill ourselves to help you. Okay. But if you're like a consultant, you want to kind of do this part-time, you got to have the time. It's not us, right? It just takes a lot of time to launch these things, right? And so if you're saying, oh, I can do 15 to 20 hours, some weeks it will be 15 to 20 hours. Some months it will be 15 to 20 hours. But you need to have the time for when it's not 15 to 20 hours a week or 15 to 20 hours a month. And certainly when it comes time to close, you're going to need a lot more time. So if you're saying I have 20 to 40 hours, it's like, well, maybe you can do it. And this leads to one final point. We give everyone guides on how to write a good thesis. And literally, Mike, what would you say? We get 3 good theses in 1,800 applications.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these theses are terrible.
Yeah,
And
we tell you like the secret sauce. Here's how you write it. We actually give you a framework for writing it, and people still don't do it.
Sorry, Mike. Yeah. I just put an article out on track record. Can you share that? I just put it out this morning. So like, because people are so terrible at describing their own track record. So what we did is we wrote an article on track record to help you think about how you can do your secret sauce better in your thesis, because a lot of times it's based on your track record, right? So if you just do a good thesis, I mean, so let's go through this again. Strong network, and you're going to get a good score, right? Because we rate each thing on each of the things I'm talking about, okay? Strong thesis, you're going to get a good score. You got the right amount of time, you're going to get a good score. So, and you know, the consulting background thing, you know, if you're a consultant and you literally can convince us that you're not going to do consulting, you're in all the way on venture, we can reduce it, but that's going to ding you as well. So happy to talk about other people, but those are such common problems that I just mentioned that almost everyone here who's applied will have one of them.
How regular do you run the cohorts? We run cohorts 4 times a year, basically, at this point, you know, and will there be one in January? We haven't actually planned out 2024 yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's certainly one operating or one starting in that time frame.
Vanessa's asking if we need capital to get started. So no, but so look, LPs expect GPs, which would be you, to invest in the fund, and they usually require 1%. So on a $10 million fund, that would be $100,000. Now you don't have to put $100,000 in on day one. You put it in on a capital call structure. So if you call 20% on day one and you have a $100,000 GP commit, you'd have to put $20,000 on day one. If you call another 20%, 4 months later, you'd put another $20,000 when you call the 20%. Now, if you don't have the money, you can do a smaller fund size. Generally speaking, if funds 5 million and below, LPs don't often require GPs to have a GP commit because the fund is so small, the GP is not really making a lot of money. So they're like, you know, you don't have to do the GP commit. So the answer is sort of. For anything above $5 million, you're going to need to do a GP commit. There's going to need to be you putting in capital. At 5 million and below, the GP commit tends to be more optional. And so you don't necessarily need any money to start a fund. You will need to work on it though, and not get paid for some period of time. measured in months, not years usually.
How is this program able to be free? Are there any costs down the line, for example, using software or carry?
No. Unicorn fairy dust is how. No, so look, we ironically, the VC Lab as a company is actually doing pretty well financially. So what happens is the program's free, the software free, all this stuff is free, and we if we like people, like firms, we invite them to apply, and they have to get accepted, and then we will run the back office of those funds, and that's a paid service, and it's cheaper than anything else on the market, ironically, and we're doing it very well because we built amazing software. So even though we're cheaper than everyone else, we have good margins because we use software, and so the company's kind of profitable on that. But we also invest in the funds that we like as well. So we power funds, we invest in funds, but all of our main, in fact, almost everything we do is free. Obviously, investing, we're giving money away. The program's free, the software is free. So the only thing right now that people pay for is if we power the whole back office and set the fund up. And as I said, that's roughly, what would you say, half price to what's on market today, Mike?
Yeah, it's pretty close, but again, it's application only because we're 100% focused on quality, not quantity. So that, we're in the business of helping launch like the best venture capital firms that are going to power the future of humanity. And that's kind of how we're thinking about this whole entire approach. So it's completely free. It's not freemium. It's not designed in any way to like upsell to any services. As a matter of fact, we throttle that with any sort of premium service with another application process to ensure that we really focus on quality, basically.
And by the way, we're not in all the vendors in. Okay, we got to take a vendor break, Mike. Okay. All righty. So, okay. There are. I can't even say the words. The people that work in venture capital today are very disingenuous, particularly the vendors, okay? And they will try and they're just bad actors. So the law firms, the back office providers, not all of them, but let's just say like 90+% are just bad. And so they'll be like, you need to form with me. You need to use my service now. It's like, I don't even have an idea for my fund. Well, that's too late, and they lie, and they're like boiler room sales operations in some cases. It's just bad. So I beg you, if you're thinking of working with Carta, if you're thinking of working with a law firm, stop, okay?
Yes, cut it out.
And stop right now, all right? And say, if you don't have 10% of your fund with signed letters of intent of people interested in investing in it, you should not be talking to anyone. These are dishonest, disreputable, and bad people. And the fact that they're talking to you and you don't have 10% of your fund locked down is just a sign of how bad they are. And so, in fact, I'll tell you something point blank. If you work with Carta, you don't get into our program. It's an automatic no, because they're so dishonest and disreputable that we won't work with them. It's like we have boundaries, right? It's like like an abusive spouse or something. Like, I don't want to deal with them. Like, tough. You made a bad decision. I didn't make you make that bad decision. I don't want to be the cleanup person. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a relationship coach. I'm sorry that happened, but now you got to deal with the mistake that you made. There's a 3-year cancellation clause that's $75,000 to walk away once you sign the engagement letter with Carta. That's a great organization. I don't know, Mike, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, listen, I mean, a lot of people, especially folks in the audience that are coming from like the entrepreneurial world, like one of the first things you do when you start a business is you do start to incorporate. So it's like, I understand like how you think about this naturally, but funds don't work like that. That's the last thing you do. The last thing you do in funds is start to kind of pick vendors to work with and things like that. What you spend most of your time on is pitching LPs, getting everything ready to go. And only when you have everything locked down with what we call a pact, and we'll put that link in the chat here, that's when you really want to start engaging with vendors. That's when, you know, you have enough to be able to like also have vendors work with you to, you know, charge you after you close and all these other things, and you have leverage. But yeah, 100%. Like one of the biggest things that Adeo and I have to do is we have to sit there and unwind either complicated legal relationships because somebody worked with like a law firm and now they're in for 50. Go Adeo. This is like crazy. Yeah.
Okay, so these law firms give you 200-page LPA and subscription agreements, okay? You will take you 3-4 weeks to properly read and understand them. And I promise you on everything sacred, you probably won't understand half of it, even if you sit there with Google and everything else. A lot of the terms they use in these agreements, you can't even Google, okay? There's VCAP and blah, blah, blah. Google VCAP. You'll get some crap on Investopedia that has nothing to do with it's terrible. And so they are the only ones that can interpret the scroll of your LPA, which means that, like, let's say you have to unwind a deal or you have a problematic LP. You can't actually go to your underlying agreement, read it, and understand what to do. You have to call your $1,500 an hour lawyer and ask them what to do, because they make these complicated agreements that only they can understand, and other $1,500 an hour lawyers, which is just insane. Okay. And then what that means is that you are at a disadvantage in your own firm because you can't interpret your own agreements. So that, let's say an LP who has lots of money and a fund formation attorney on staff says, I think this LP messed up. Find something in the LPA that they messed up. In 200 pages of rules and regulations that you don't understand, I promise you will mess something up. And then the LP can sue you. So this is, these vendors are just bad news, everybody. And, you know, I'm happy to go into further detail. I know we have lots of questions, but just trust Mike and me, please.
Yeah, just say no. Just say no to aggressive salespeople from back office providers and from don't talk to law firms. Just go get a bunch of packs. Get a bunch of packs. That we put the pact article in the chat. Until at least 10% of the fund is signed with pacts, don't even start like going down that path.
I see a lot of people in the chat are like, oh my God, I had this happen. Oh my God, I was about to sign. Thank God. I mean, if I could help one person here avoid the headaches, it's a win for me. But let's go with questions.
Yeah, what percent of the cohort makes it through the program and closes the first 10%? What are some of the key issues for not graduating?
So 100% of the people that make it through the program close, because closing is a requirement of making it through the program, if that makes sense. But only 30 to 40%, I think it's like 34 to 40% of people that start the program get to the end and close, right? So 100% of the 34% to 40% close. And now look, people don't finish for lots of, I mean, Mike, I mean, people are like,
yeah, life happens, you know.
I got COVID.
Sick. Yeah, people get sick. Like, yeah.
Dad got sick. Exactly. I don't want to be a VC anymore. I joined another VC as a partner, but you know, so much. I mean, you know, it's not like, you know, it's an intensive program and life happens. I would say, if you are genuinely want to be a VC, but you can't keep pace with the program for whatever reason, people come back and we let lots of, I don't know, Mike, what would we say, 15% of.
Yeah, we'll come back in like cohort 11 or cohort 12 or cohort 13 or whatever. Yeah, this happens all the time. And a lot of people close. We're closing a bunch of folks right now that are on their second try. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's just about rather when the timing kind of lines up.
Closing a VC is hard. We
Yeah.
try to make it as easy as possible, but that doesn't make it easy. Like climbing Mount Everest is hard. You could have like a great suit, lots of oxygen, you can still fail to climb Mount Everest, right? So we're like a great suit, lots of oxygen, a cheering squad, and like, Sherpas and everything else, but you're climbing Mount Everest.
All right. LinkedIn is not reflective of how our LP network big is, or how big our LP network is, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. Well, look, the VC is a network business. Okay. It's not just LPs. It's like founders. It's everything. It's like, so no, it is indicative of whether or not you're going to be sort of successful, because again, you need to have a big network for you to do well. And again, most of the LPs are going to be high net worth individual types, right? Like a lot of these kind of like LPs that are more famous in sub-Saharan Africa, like the institutional folks, are super unlikely to invest in your fund. So even if you have those connections, they technically don't matter. It's really your connections to rich people, so to speak, angels, that type of folks. So it depends how you define LP as well.
And look, we've tripled the number of maybe even quadrupled the number of funds operating on the continent of Africa. VC Lab has, okay? So I would argue that we know more about African funds than any other organization in the world today. All right. So, and we work with African funds every day. I'm a huge believer in Africa because it's going to leapfrog the West in terms of venture, and as a result, in terms of a lot of the underlying innovations. It's leapfrogged the West in the past, and it's happening again with venture in Africa. Okay. But raising a fund in Africa is at least twice as hard as raising a fund in the West. And raising a fund in the West is like one of the hardest things you can do. So I'm going to tell you like it is. And a lot of those LPs that you think are going to invest, Mike, what's going to happen?
They're going to tell you, they're going to drag you on, tell you that they love you, and you're going to feel really great about yourself. And then they're never going to wire. A year later, you're still going to be chasing. They're never going to wire.
They sign the LPA and don't wire. That's a very common phenomenon in Africa that happens everywhere in the world, which is crazy. It happened to me in America with a billionaire, right? But it happens in Africa all the time. They sign the LPA and they don't wire. You do a capital call and they don't wire. So we have provisions in our stock LPA that if someone doesn't wire, you can just remove them from the fund. So it's not like too big of a pain, which most law firms don't. So if someone doesn't wire, you have to go to the law firm and be like, what do I do? And they're like, well, for $1,500 an hour, I can fix it for you. Like, oh my God. All right, let's keep rolling.
Right. About solicitation, I just got this new letter from Jason Calcanis that mentioned they're raising Fund 4 in the newsletter, especially on their website. Could you comment, is this approach acceptable as well? So Pavel, Jason is using 506C to raise his fund. We generally don't recommend that approach for the vast majority of people. Is there some exceptions to that rule? Yes, but that for most people, it just doesn't work. And it's not really an advantage either. That's the other thing. Like people think it's an advantage, it's not.
Yeah, so in America, general solicitation is a set of rules adopted worldwide that basically says you can't go out there and advertise an offering. So you have to only promote it to people you know and only promote it to people that are rich. There's an exception in the US, but it doesn't apply to Europe and other places in the world, called 506C. And if you go and do some general solicitation like Jason's doing, then every single LP that comes in has to prove that they're accredited by supplying paperwork and things that they are wealthy. And a lot of the bigger LPs don't want to do that. So Jason's funds are like 10 million bucks because he can't get the bigger LPs to come in because he's using 506C to fundraise. And so if you want to, so if you're famous and you want to have small funds, do 506c. If you're like everyone else in the world, don't do 506c, right? You know.
How do GPs make money? Can GPs become co-founders of startups they invest in? You definitely don't want to be a co-founder in startups you invest in. That's a serious conflict of interest. GPs make money through management fees, and carry. So you get 2% per year. These are like management fees for the fund, and then you get a carry of 20%, which is essentially 20% of like the profits that you bring in once the fund like returns. So that's how you make money.
So it's not uncommon for a first-time fund manager to get 3, 5, and even a big one, 10x. So if you had $10 million fund, let's say 10x, that's 100 million. The 10 million comes out for the first investors, and your 90 million is appropriate to carry, and then you would get 20% of that. So that's, whatever, 17 million or whatever the number is. So it's you can't make lots of money as a VC, mainly in carry in the early years, but carry can take a decade to materialize. So it takes time, but it can be very lucrative.
How many teams are in a typical cohort?
I think you might mean firms. So, we'll accept about 300 and change people usually that enroll. And then that's about 200 and some odd teams, 220, 250, depending in that range. And we can't really go above that because then the program quality declines. We have like almost a 92 MPS. It went down a little bit in cohort 9, and it's back up in cohort 10. Cohort 9 had some interesting stuff in it. It was in the middle of the SVB crisis and the banking crisis. Very interesting time to start a fund, to say the least. All right, let's.
Is it a terrible time?
Is it a terrible time? April was our best month ever. Well, technically it was the second best month ever because there was one month where one fund brought in $30 million that pushed up the number quite a bit, but it was kind of tie with that month. So April was the tied for best month ever. So whatever you're reading in the media about it being a bad time for venture, if you're a Tiger Global or SoftBank, which I don't even know that those guys are actually venture cap. They're like PE firms playing venture capital on TV or something. They got slaughtered, right? But they were giving stupid money at stupid valuations, and that was, everyone knew that was a game that was going to end badly, right? And so those guys are all hurt, right? Writing super big checks for crazy valuations, but early stage is booming. There's no sign of a slowdown right now.
Yeah, and it's going to skip all of the potential issues, right? Because you're looking at exits in 10 to 15 years. After submitting my application initially, I kept updating my investment thesis. Since my application already got processed, do further changes matter? So don't need to get seen on your side. You
can write in and say it's been updated if you really have done it, and it's been, if you're on like if it says you're a finalist, that means that your application's been reviewed and is in the process of being reviewed. So you've been scored, Quintana. I could put you back to applied. I'll do that right now. So we'll re-review you to make sure your stuff. But if you made it, first of all, we see when your application was updated. But to be fair, after we've reviewed it once or twice, we're not always. And I review every application on top of a team. But if you did do a substantive update to your application, just reply back to any email that you got and said, hey, just as an FYI, I updated my application. We'll re-review it for you.
Do we get a recording? Yes, we're recording this right now. How do we know final acceptance on the cohort? Like, we're gonna let people know, right? Basically like the week of, or like right around the time when we start the next program. Do you take commissions on fundraise through the program? Hell no. And don't ever work with brokers, ever, Peter, like ever. Like people that come in, it's like, I'll help you raise money, just give me this money. No, like hard
Guys,
no.
we're not in the business of fucking managers, okay? We're like, our program's free. There's no hidden commission cost or like, it's like free. Like, I know that's hard to understand. I actually think we're changing business. Like, there's one thing that we ask. It's like refer good people. That's it. Like, there's literally, we give away a sports car because I think the program's probably worth the cost of a sports car. And all we ask is you refer good people to get another free sports car. That's it. Like, no, we're not taking a cut. We're not asking for anything at all. Nothing. Like, if you're good, we'd love to power you. And what we power for about half the cost of the other people in the market. But that's it. Like, literally. And if you're really good, we want to fund you. So quite the opposite. We want to help. And I think, we need to change. Business is terribly predatory, right? And I don't want to be that way. I want to do things differently. I'm not as young as I once was, and I don't have that many businesses in me left. Maybe this is it. And, maybe hopefully maybe another, but like all I want to do now is like change the way things are done and give first. Like we didn't have a business model when we started, and it was just like, we're going to help as much as we can and give as much as we can to make the world better. And maybe we'll figure out a business model and make some money while doing that. And we did, and it's working great, but we live under the premise of give first and help first and foremost. Okay.
Everyone, we have about 10 minutes left and there's like 47 questions. So before you add another question, please just go through this Q&A list and just start upvoting questions so that we can really get through the ones that everybody here wants to see. Because we're obviously not going to go through everything.
If we don't get to your question on LinkedIn under Adeo Ressi, there's going to be, it says, do you have questions? You could post your questions there and I will answer them if we don't get to them here on the webinar. Okay, let's roll.
Yeah. So what is a warehouse deal? We can put an article on a warehouse deal.
That's a great idea. I'll do that, Mike. So warehouse, there are two types of warehouse deals, so it can be kind of confusing. Oh, you could have a deal that you've invested in that you transfer into the fund at cost. That's one type of warehouse deal. And then you could have a warehouse deal that you're planning to invest in the moment the fund closes. Generally speaking, the first kind, the one that you invested in as an angel and you're transferring into the fund, are the better kind of warehouse deals to use. Let's keep rolling.
I've applied and I'm currently putting a team together. Which stage in my fund do I need to be for the program? Should I have a team consolidated before to start? No, like Rashad, don't work with people you don't know and haven't worked with. 66% of alumni are solo. And it's not like co-founding a company where you need multiple people. There's actually more risk that your team will break up and the whole fund falls apart. And the consequences of that are severe. They're not like a startup where you have vesting and everything, and it's easy to kind of like fix that. Okay. So don't feel like you need a team to apply. It's okay if you're solo. Do you look at other network indicators that other than like LinkedIn followers? There's people talking about like, there's several questions along this line. Like, not really.
Not really.
No.
It's like, I know there are other, listen, I live in the world. I'm on Discord, I'm on Telegram, I'm on all this stuff. So there are other, but we've looked and LinkedIn, and I'm a huge critic of LinkedIn. If you go look at my post, I'm like, I think LinkedIn's going to hell right now and a handbasket. But it's still the best indicator of a quality network because it's more professional than, let's say, Twitter or any of these others. So it's got a combination of founders, limited partners, other professionals that can help you with your fund, whether it be connectors, et cetera, et cetera. So we primarily looked at LinkedIn.
Will the accepted team get early, open, honest feedback on their application in terms of high points, area of improvement, et cetera? No. We look, everyone, just so you can kind of get a sense of scale. Roughly about almost 3,000 people start applications every single time we run this program, right? And so every year we look at 10,000. We just don't have like the bandwidth to be providing people with like feedback on their applications, right? This isn't like a small program. This is so we take 3,000-ish, we whittle it down to like 300, and then the program takes over from there, and then a subset of those end up graduating, right? So it's a lot. If you were appointed as a venture partner in a smaller fund, is there a COI to establish with your own fund? Yeah, I mean, you're going to probably have some pretty serious conflict of interest, especially if the fund has a similar thesis. So you're going to have to kind of work through that and make sure that you either disclose that, or you might even have to renounce being a venture partner in this fund if you want to pull off your own fund.
You'll definitely have to disclose it in the LPA that you're and other materials that you're a venture partner, but that's a good stepping stone to being a partner in your own fund, is being a venture partner in another fund. So happens all the time.
Yeah, I found a very complimentary expert who wants to start a VC fund or venture studio in the last cohort group. Is it advisable to join hands and start a VC fund? It's not advisable for you to start stuff with people you don't know well and haven't worked with for a significant amount of time.
Yeah, let me explain this. This is 16 years. Okay, if it goes, you're going to be working together. If it goes modestly right, it doesn't need to go right, modestly right, you're going to be working together for 16 years. So generally speaking, our advice is start out as a venture partner, and if you're starting to fund, bring that person on as a venture partner. If you like them, make them a partner in fund too, right? But if you don't know them very, very, very well, very, very, very well, don't even bother. And there are people you know very, very well. And by the way, you bring them in the program. And Mike, how often does this happen? Like partnerships break up in the program all the time.
All the time.
Sometimes the two people go on, start their own funds. Sometimes one leaves, the other stays. But once you're like, hey, you guys got to get this stuff done every week to build your firm. Some people are like super lazy, don't do anything. And then the other person's like, I'm doing everything. Why are you even here? And they break up. So the program can be a very good testing ground for a relationship, even if you know the person very well, to see if you can work together on the fund.
Would you be open to applicants outside the United States? For instance, I'm from India. Can I apply? Yeah, I mean, 60% of the alumni are outside the United States. Over 60%. So it's like a global program from the beginning. Is how to acquire active deal flow part of the program? Yes, we spent some time on that for sure.
A lot. I mean, a big chunk of the program is building a deal warehouse, so to speak.
I applied the first round. I'd love to learn when you share acceptance to the program. We talked about this, so this is like, in a few weeks.
Or Vasali, I can look you up as well. Okay, keep going, Mike.
Is there a list of accepted applicants? No, but once you get into the program, everybody will be asked to be in Slack. You'll be in a learning management system, LMS, where you can see everybody there, so you can do that.
Urvashi, you're actually you've been scored as an applicant but not processed, so we'll let you know soon.
Curious if Web3 blockchain funds are accepted to the cohort. Yeah, we have quite a lot, but look, you have to be a VC.
Mike, we have a crypto track this particular cohort 11, and we have an emerging manager track. So we're going to have dedicated resources for people working on decentralized finance, blockchain, Web3, crypto funds. And we already have dedicated resources and things for people who are on Fund 2 and Fund 3.
Is investor accreditation necessary for the program? No.
You become an accredited investor when you start a VC firm. So you don't need to be, of course, if you are accredited, that's great. But by starting the fund, you become accredited.
Does VC Lab have relations with networks of LPs or fund of funds based in Europe, such as in Italy? Fund of funds are not going to fund your fund one, Francesco. Like, just be clear. So you don't; those are like super bad
We
archetypes.
will.
Yeah, ours will.
Is
Yeah,
about one of the only ones, and there's one like I can literally name on one hand the number of fund of funds worldwide that will actually back new managers. They say they do, but really very few do. And
yeah.
so that's not so. We're not here to make LP introductions. We're here to help you build systems and processes to get your own LPs,
Yeah,
right?
and if anyone tells you otherwise, then you should like run away. There's no such thing as a program that can actually, make LP introductions. Okay.
And in fact, a lot of the ones that have promised that have proven to be, what's that guy's name? Sir Rothschild or whatever.
Yeah.
So tons of people will tell you, oh, I have an event in Rome with the embassy and all the LPs will be there. Yeah, okay. No, they won't.
They don't work. They don't work. They don't work because they're not backing a company, right? But they're backing a person. Like, just think about that. And you're gonna manage their money for 10 to 15 years. So you can't really do that. You can't just match people with LPs. There's a lot of that goes into that to make it work. So no, it doesn't work. And if anybody tells you that, you should like run away because they don't know what they're doing. What are two hardest things of raising a fund and why are they the hardest? Creating a thesis is really hard for a lot of people because again, it's like you're trying to find what that secret sauce is that's going to really relate to LPs. And then I would say like, just being able to deal with like a lot of no's because you're going to get a lot of no's.
The interesting thing is this is a great irony of venture. So you're basically going to be in the world of receiving no's all day long when you're pitching, and then you're going to be in the world of giving no's all day long when people are pitching you. So you live in this dichotomy of like, I can tell you that hearing no over and over again is disheartening. Like as a founder, you hear more yeses when pitching than a VC. That is for sure. Because you may need to pitch in the beginning 15 LPs to get one yes. Now, eventually we'll work with you to get it to where you're getting 1 in 5 yeses or 2 in 5 yeses. And if you're really good, you can get to 3 in 5 yeses. But even 1 in 5 yeses is 4 no's to 1 yes, right? So it's not great.
Well, we do have a hard stop right now, so maybe we can just like leave you with a few final closing words.
Closing thought number 1, if you've got a question on here, and we got about 35 open questions, Mike, post my LinkedIn if you can find the post. I literally have a post that says, put your questions here. So move your questions there. We'll do our best to answer. We don't want to leave anyone without their questions answered. That our goal is to help. And so that's a good segue into some closing thoughts. I want nothing more than everyone here to succeed launching a venture capital firm. Now we want to work with the people that have the best shot to doing it. So let me leave you with these 2 things. First, if for some reason you don't get into cohort 11, we're launching something called Venture Academy. It's mainly to train associates, but it's going to give you a massive overview of the venture capital industry in about 2 months, also completely free. And I recommend that everyone here try that to get a deep understanding of how venture works so you can improve your application and get into cohort 12. Right? Because we want to see more people in venture because we need to take more money and put it into things that matter, right? I can't think of a better way to help the planet right now than to take money from oil, from plastics, from war, and start moving that money to renewables, to medicine, to things that just will improve the human condition on this planet, make this planet and the future something that we can all be proud of, right? And I know we can do it. I'm seeing these managers launch funds. I mean, we have funds in Africa run by women to back women who are making a difference on the continent. We have funds in, one of our top performing funds is a fund in LATAM backing impact startups, and it has a unicorn in it in less than 2 years, right? So it can be done. We can do it. We are doing it, and we want to help as many people as possible to make this world a better place and move money into things that matter. So, you know, I'll answer every question you throw my way and try and be as helpful as possible. If we can help you in any way, Mike and I are here to do that. We want to see you succeed, because if you succeed, we can all succeed if we have the shared value of making things better.
And with that being said, everyone, if you're thinking about applying, apply on by Sunday this weekend, and we're looking forward to looking and reviewing your applications. Bye, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye, guys.